Welcome to the Monday Night Men's Forum, brought to you by Farm Hop Life. Today, my guest is Tenzin of Red Door Family Farm. He was on a couple weeks ago, him and his wife Stacy, to talk about their operation quite a bit. We'll wait for other people to come in, but Tenzin, why don't you start off? Just give a quick overview of your operation, year you started, where you're at, and what you do.
Yeah, we started our farm here in 2014. We're in north central Wisconsin in Athens, small town just outside the small town of Athens, Wisconsin. And we grow mostly vegetables for CSA farmers market and some wholesale accounts. Um, we, yeah, that's pretty much the scoop. We got my wife and I run the farm. We've got a couple of kids and a couple of sort of full-time seasonal employees and a few more part-timers during the season. And we're farming about 10, 12 acres of vegetables every year and kind of a real wide swath of everything we can grow this far north.
Sweet. How many? You had four giant greenhouses, right? That's
Yeah, we've got four high tunnels. They're 30 by 120 feet. And we do a lot of production in those. Just with our season being so short, they're a huge boon to us. So that's the only action going on right now. We've got a little propagation greenhouse that's way too small. We're going to put up another, essentially a high tunnel, and turn it into a heated greenhouse for propagation this year, but it won't house any starts until next year probably.
Are
Um,
your greenhouses heated or are they heated passively?
so when I say greenhouse, I mean a heated.
Okay.
It's still a polypropylene tunnel. It's the same frame, but it's two layers of plastic and it's actively heated. The four 30 by 120 high tunnels are just passively heated. There's no heat
Okay.
source in there. And they're about half of them are half of that ground is in production right at this moment. It's kind of the spring turnover right now. So we've got about half of our ground is either got some lettuces and radishes and turnips and stuff planted this spring, and or has spinach that's overwintered from last fall, planted last fall, and we're still taking cuttings off of it for the next few weeks.
Have
So we
you
can,
already bought the new greenhouse or is that later
yeah, yep,
this year?
it's sitting out here in the snowbank looking at me.
What's so let, to get into a little bit of current events, what'd you pay for that new greenhouse or high
Yeah,
tunnel?
that's a good question. So we decided we wanted to get one in late 2020, I suppose. We had been looking into it early 2020, and it was about $9,000 for the frame and the plastic. And then we called up in I don't know, it's late 2020 or early 2021, and it was they said it had tripled. It was $28,000.
Holy smokes.
So we said, well,
Whoa.
never mind. We're not going to grow that much stuff in there to pay for that anyhow. So um, then we found a frame. Some friends of ours actually had a frame that they had sort of done a combined farm, or somebody was renting land from them and had their own vegetable operation going on the side of their farm, and they had a hoop house and it got most of the way put up, and then the project got abandoned. They
Hmm.
moved off that farm and never came back for it, so they sold it to us for what they had into it, or maybe a bit less. So that was back down to the regular price. So we picked that up last fall, and it's all stacked up here. But um, when the when the ground clears, we'll get going on that project. But that's been a big deal. I mean, when we sort of budgeted about $20,000 for the greenhouse with with a frame and a concrete slab and a heater. And I thought, well, prices are going up. It might be $30,000 or something by the time we're all done here, especially if we did hydronic heat and had a boiler. But by the time we shopped it all out and kind of swinging for the fences and just doing everything we wanted,
Yeah.
it was about $78,000.
Oh my gosh.
So
that is crazy, dude.
We've ratcheted that back quite a bit in our planning now. So we're just going to go with a regular propane heater for the time being and a gravel pad.
Okay.
And yeah, it'll still work just fine. It won't be quite as nice for everything we were hoping to use that space for, but it will do the job. And it's hard to justify an expense like that, on broccoli.
Right. So, man, seed prices for you also have got to be like through the roof, right?
Seed prices are up a bit. They were always high. We do very specialized things for the most part. And it's a really small, I think, if you're doing thousands of acres of grains, your seed price relative per acre relative to what you're selling an acre's worth of product for is a significant cost. For us, I won't say it's insignificant, but it's we could make or break finances a lot more in many other regards than seed prices. We probably spend. I just figured this out. Actually, we got our taxes in. I want to say it was like somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 on seeds every year, but that's not a huge percentage of our overall budget there.
With the price of fuel, you're probably not dinking around in the tractor too much lately.
No, a little less joyriding. But it keeps me from engaging in what Farmers Union just had an article that came out about recreational tillage.
Recreational tillage.
That was a great phrase.
Yeah. You'll have to throw that on a sweatshirt.
Yep, there'll be less recreational tillage this year.
That's very, very true. What oh shoot, I had another question. Where's my notes here? Okay, so do you think the price of your how much do you think that the price of your materials has gone up due to just like supply shortages or freight or inflation? Any ideas or insights onto that?
Well, so like that hoop house situation, that was pretty complicated. That was early. That was in 2020. That had to do with the, trade war type scenario with China and the price of steel, and also with hemp becoming much more legal to produce. So everyone and their cousin was putting up a hoop house quick to get on the front end of that, I think. And so
sure.
So that's what that they said as much when we said, well, is it going to come down? And they said, well, as long as more states keep opening up the hemp or marijuana or whatever, we're never going to catch up to demand until that slows down. So, and so that's when we started looking around and trying to find a frame somewhere else, because we just thought, well, we're not going to wait that long.
Right.
And, I don't know, fuel. I don't know. I guess my sort of take on things is that, that inflation pressure's been there for a while, but prices have not gone up dramatically for some time, I feel like, generally speaking. And,
like it's long overdue?
Yeah, it's a bit overdue, I think, from like a macroeconomic standpoint. And then, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of industries capitalizing on turmoil, supply chain disruptions, general things, um, and they can raise prices, so they are. I mean, I mean,
because
and
they can.
that's based on a little, not a lot. I'm not an economist by any stretch of the imagination. You should see the chicken scratch I used to get our taxes done. But the around here, I feel like the price of milk has been in the tank, but butter keeps going up. The price of uh, you know logs. I got a buddy who skids wood in the winter, and the price of logs keeps going down and down, and the price of a 2x4 is like I don't know what it is, 4 or 5 times what it was a year or two ago.
Right.
So I kind of think that it actually doesn't have very much to do with supply chain things. I think it has more to do with opportunity.
Sure, they're not letting this opportunity go to waste to be able to charge 3 times
Right.
or 5 or 10 or whatever really they want to get away with. Almost really, I mean, they got to hedge it like a little bit, but I mean, yeah, it's crazy out there. It's like I don't know, 100% markup on like cereal. People that buy cereal and whatnot. You know,
Right.
even like the off brand. You know,
Right. And grain's coming up a little bit, but it's not going to do. And I mean, I think that's probably mostly a Ukraine situation. Increases in grain price. I mean, they were going to go up because everything's going up, but so there's some amount of that's inflation, but some of that is supply on coming out of Ukraine. Apparently, they're a bigger player than I ever really realized in the global grain market.
right? Yeah. Um, Yeah, it's. I think before even the whole Ukraine thing, I saw like the graph for bushel of wheat or whatever was like almost like hockey stick, if or
Yeah.
even worse than a hockey stick. You know, it was
Yeah.
almost like straight up. It was just insane how high it was, and it looked like it was still climbing. So, which and then we could also like talk about like fertilizer because I was talking to I had an interview yesterday and this guy had said the price of fertilizer is so high that some
Mm-hmm.
people are just not even going to grow. They're just like
Yeah.
can't do it.
And labor, in the vegetable world, labor is a way bigger expense than seed or fertilizer or anything like that. And the price of labor is and the
Sure,
supply of labor are price of labor is going up and the supply is going down consequently, or vice versa consequently. But the I know a couple of farms that have just either completely changed around their farm model to not have very many employees and just manage a couple of key accounts, or have just taken essentially a hiatus and gotten other jobs or do whatever they do.
right? Yeah. Are you worried about keeping your employees around at all?
I am always worried about keeping our employees around, but our first few years we struggled a lot with keeping employees around, and the last few years we've had the same steady crew, and they're rock solid and they're great, and so I feel great going into this season with the crew we've got. Um, every year we've added more, labor hours, and with one weird exception, it's just gotten steadier and steadier year after year. And since this crew, Alex and Ethan, since they've been here, they're going on their 4th season now with
Wow.
us, and that's a totally different kind of farming. I don't know. It's fun again, and you're playing off each
Sure.
other as a team instead of just this constant. Here's how you hold this. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. And
Right.
when we harvest, I don't know. We've got like 80 some different plantings of vegetables that go out throughout the year. So you're never doing the same thing long enough to get good at it unless you stick around for a number of seasons,
Sure.
Well,
What do you think has changed between your first few employees till now?
yeah, I wish I had a real solid answer there. We decided that was a huge problem for us, and that we hadn't really had anybody we had one person finish a season since for the first 4 years of the farm. Well, I guess that's not true. The first year we had one part-timer. And then we were starting to take it a little personal. And I think it was
Like, am I a bad boss? I mean, how couldn't you, right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, it was such a big deal to us, that I just felt like, wow, I can't believe they're walking away, and like we'd have 1 month to go of harvest or something. And it's a short
Like,
season.
really? Now you couldn't put in one more
Yeah,
month?
it's pretty much like June through October is the show. May, there's stuff to do, but um, you know, most of our labor starts in June. So anyway, so we decided to take it more seriously, get a little bit more professional, get a little bit more organized, and try to make it a better situation. And we were doing things that we thought they would appreciate, but I think they didn't. I think our efforts were counterproductive, if anything. But yeah, and then we just got the right people. I don't know. We went from higher drama scenarios to very steady, low drama, solid crew. They show up, they want to work, they care about the farm, and they like being here. And that's kind of the main thing. And it's been great. It's really allowed us to, feel really confident planning for the next season, for one thing, each time, and also finding ways to invest in them in ways that they want to be invested in.
Right. I talked to another guy on Thursday. He has a pretty decent livestock operation in Virginia, I think. And he goes, one thing that I learned from like the military is if we're gonna like work together, I need two things: attitude and initiative. If you have those, I can teach you anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have those, this isn't going to work. And he has quite a bit of like high employee turnover. Also, like there'll be people that work for him for let's say two years, and 80% of them will never farm again. Like they after 2 years doing their program or whatever it is, people are just like, this isn't for me. So I guess I mean, even knowing what you know now, I guess I wouldn't take it personal. It's just human nature, I guess, that people are just like, no.
Well, I think it actually was a little personal there early on, and I mean that to say I think that it was directly our fault.
Oh, okay.
We needed our employees more than we were fully acknowledging. So we had a high dependency, but a low threshold for, mistakes or disinterest. And I think we sort of realized, it's not their farm, it's our farm, it's our baby. So I think we didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea what we were doing. So
sure,
it's hard to give clear directions and not make people do work and only to have to turn around and undo what we just did because it didn't play out,
Yeah.
So it was a lot of things. When I say it was personal, I don't mean that as like a
Yeah, I
bigger
gotcha.
gym. I mean it as like I think we just weren't doing our job. We didn't know how yet.
Sure. So, do you think both of your employees they kind of have like their own little side project whoop, on the farm, right? Because one of them does chickens and the other does something
Yeah.
else.
Yep.
Do you
Potatoes.
think do you think that makes a difference? That they're like
I
they
think
have their
so.
space?
Yep. And yes, I do think it makes a difference. We had offered that to everybody though, but I think
Hmm.
early on people took it as like a
Do more work for free.
yeah, that kind of a thing. And it came off as challenging rather than just an offer. When really it was only an offer. It was we wanted them to do it because we wanted them to have that sense of autonomy somewhere on the farm, and we
Yeah,
knew we were going to be working shoulder to shoulder with them telling them what to do all day, so we wanted them to have a place to go do it their way. um,
it's a good idea.
and and we had that on farms that we worked on previously, and found a lot of value in it. But I think the people we were working with early on weren't really interested in being farmers or figuring out how to own a farm or a farm enterprise. You know, they thought this would be a cool way to spend the summer. And that's a different kettle of fish. It can be a very cool way to spend the summer, and that can be a great fit for a season or whatever. Um, but I think it's good to be clear about expectations and goals on both sides, so that so you're not tripping over yourself offering things they don't want.
It's a good point. So
And then
let's go ahead.
Alex and Ethan are actually part of a formal apprenticeship program as well that just got going in Wisconsin. They're some of the first graduates from it, and it's a 2-year program, and comes with some coursework and stuff. Um, and that was actually that was a great experience, I think, for them as well, because we sort of forced us to make sure the education was comprehensive and gave them a really easy format to run questions by us in a way that was not challenging, instead of being like, why are you doing it like that, dork? It was like, so I hear there are some other ways to do this.
So what do they get on the other side of that apprenticeship? I mean, because they already had the job, right?
Yeah, yep. Generally, sometimes people have reached out to us through the apprenticeship program looking for a job, and we just haven't had the turnover to need them yet.
Sure.
But they basically, it's just a credential, and it's really set up for them to be able to go on and be farm managers. So it's sort of saying, okay, I have a comprehensive understanding of a farm, because if somebody says, oh, I worked on a vegetable farm for 2 years, it really depends on the farm and on the farmer or the farming style. Does this person know everything from sending out newsletters and marketing through, post harvest handling through,
Right.
running the tiller and driving the tractor, or do they just know how to weed carrots, or what's the, there's a wide spectrum there. So this sort of says, okay, they've been checked off on a whole comprehensive list of skills and activity. They have at least some familiarity with everything. And
I could see value in that. Yeah. Yeah, and it kind
yeah,
of has like a little like, hey, look what I like. I'm committed to completing this thing, And
mhm.
so yeah, um, kind of switching to the topic of of tonight, community. So like your little operation, you and your employees, well, you, your wife, and your employees, kind of like a small community. Does it feel like a small community?
Yeah, it does. They live here on the farm, our main two employees, and we put up a tiny house before they arrived. Somebody else lived in the first one the season before that. And then it was really just set up to be sort of a 3-season employee housing scenario, because we're in a small town. There's absolutely nowhere to rent around here. I mean, we even considered taking out a mortgage and buying a cheap house just to have, because there's 3-4 really other farms right here in this area that all have seasonal employees coming and going and have the same problem. So I thought, well, we could do that and just rent it out, but I don't know, it's a lot of money and it's a lot of paperwork, and being a landlord and a farmer seems like a lot.
Be a good asset to have on the books, though.
Well, right,
if
and
you could swing it.
Hindsight is always 2020, right? Like anything we would have bought 3 years ago, had we actually
tripled in value,
would have been like doubled in value now. But anyway, at the time, it was just sort of like, well, we can do it this way. And so we put up this little, it's just a portable shed actually, but we made it quite cute and comfortable. Insulated, water, electric, the whole 9 yards. And, but anyway, Ethan's been living there year round now and just really liking it. And it's set up, it's not, we don't rent it to him. It's just, if he's employed here, he can stay there if he wants. And then Alex was renting a place, but it was 20 minutes away and it was really expensive and it was dumpy and had all kinds of problems all the time. And she had the chickens here on the farm. So that meant even on her days off, she was driving to the farm 20 minutes each way, morning and night at least. And so we actually worked out a really cool arrangement with her where we just sat down and had a big brainstorming session and just said, okay, well, what do you want to see happen? And what do we want to see happen? And how much are you willing to put towards it, both, financially and committing time and energy toward? And we came up with a cool deal where we basically just built the house together and we settled on a design and everything, and ended up we had somebody lined up to do the building, but then we ended up doing most of it by the end of it, and we just split everything basically 2/3 1/3, and yeah, it worked out great, and she can just live there as long as she wants now, basically.
Nice.
As long as she's employed.
Right.
Was the caveat.
Right.
And not like we'd kick her out if she just had a life change or wanted to pursue her chicken operation or grow that into something that took her off the farm. We would just sit down and have another one of those meetings and say, okay, what do we want to start and end here?
Because now it's the other type of personal.
Yeah, right, exactly. And right. And we're invested in her and she's invested in us, and it's very much a mutually beneficial relationship. So there's very little we wouldn't do for Alex.
So then what other communities are you involved in? Do you have like a online community? Because you guys are on Instagram quite a lot. Do you guys go to church, or is there like a little do you go to the Legion? I don't know what you do.
Yeah, we have a lot of things, I guess, if I really think about it for a minute. We don't go to church. We're definitely in the Bible Belt region, and we have a lot of readily available communities. If
as many churches as liquor stores in your town,
right? Yeah, there's a lot of bars here too.
It's Wisconsin, yeah.
Yeah, we try not to spend too much time in either camp.
That's probably safe.
But we are, so as far as sort of farmer groups, one thing is we're a part of Fair Share, which is a CSA vegetable farm organization based out of Madison, which is not really our neighborhood. And they are statewide. They're actually going kind of region wide now. So there's a whole listserv with them where we can reach out to similar farmers, and there's sort of a vetting process to get into the club and whatever. And so that's really helpful in terms of, I mean, just today we were picking up this new wholesale account and trying to figure out like how do we even set a price, because now, you know, instead of it marketing one way, we're marketing a different way, and how do we even figure that out? And we were able to, you can fire off an email and get 6 or 7 people that you know and trust to some extent replying. It's really cool. And they do all kinds of stuff as far as helping with marketing and education and things too. And then more locally, we are, there's this, it's called Farmer Hot Shots. And it was started, somebody else had done a similar thing somewhere else. And it's a bit of a tragic name, but we tried to rename it a couple of times and it never took. So neighboring farm here, Joel Keenhold, started it based on something he had heard of somewhere else. And that's really just farmer friends. And it's kind of whatever kind of farmer you are, if you get on the Facebook group or whatever. And pre-pandemic, we used to get together once a month. Well, we used to try to get together once a month. We were better about it in the winter than in the summer generally. But
yeah, for good reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're working 14 hours a day, it's like, I'm not even going to shower tonight. I'm so tired.
Right. So the one is sort of this listserv with very similar farmers, and the other one is more localized, but it's basically, I don't know what it is. It's like a 75-mile radius. And we would all get together at somebody's farm, tried to do it once a month, and it was a potluck, and it was a very low pressure potluck. It was actually comically bipolar, you know, because you'd have all these people that are really dedicated and interested in the food. So one person would bring like, you know, home cured salami that they made from a pig they raised and did the whole thing and had been working on it for 3 years.
Yeah, right.
And the next person's like, oh my God, I left the house and forgot that it was a potluck and stopped for a bag of chips. And so, and you know, but that moved around. It wasn't always one camp or the other. And it was very, very come as you are, sort of deal. And that was a lot of fun. And they're all great friends. We don't get together as much anymore, although we started getting together again now, a bit more. And then even more locally than that, not quite as local as our little budding commune here on the farm, is I have a funny story about that. There's, you know, 4 or 5 similar farms right here, very close by. And we share equipment and we share labor, to a lesser and lesser degree. Each farm is kind of finding their own zone more and more, but we still share information and commiserate on the weather, whether it's too wet or too dry or whatever it is. And yeah, so that's kind of our like personal, professional communities.
Explain to me the trading labor thing. So like, do some of your employees spend time on other farms and some other employees spend time on your farm if able to?
We have done that. So, okay. Like I say, it's been getting less and less. Where it really comes into play is putting up these hoop houses. You need 8 people for a day, kind of to get that done right. And it's helpful if there are people that sort of understand the process. And so one of these neighbors here calls it a modern day barn raising, where pretty much anytime somebody's putting up a hoop house, you can put out the word and
Sure.
everyone will do what they can to
Everyone's an
show up.
expert now.
Right. And there's nobody to hire that knows more about it. So
That's true.
we had
Nobody other than
actually
farmers.
we had 3 hoop houses that all blew down one July in a crazy storm. And we put out the call there to this oh, Ethan's home. He's been out for he's been on a little vacation. We put out this call to that Farmer Hotshots group I was talking about that we get together for the potlucks, and set a date to do a cleanup. And we had one Sunday morning, and there was about 14 of us here. A restaurant brewery that we sell food to donated a keg of beer, and people brought skid loaders and tools and know-how, and we had 3 hoop houses completely that were all mangled, and one of them blew clear past the house and landed in a pond, and it was a total mess. And we were done at 11:30.
What?
went for an early lunch. It was unreal. It was just an astonishing.
I'll buy everybody's steaks because that was 100% worth it.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Wow!
I could not even believe. I could not even believe how much got done so fast. It was really, there was like about 5 minutes of how are we going to divide this up, and everyone just went to work, and just boom, everything happened.
That's really cool.
And
Power community right there.
Yeah, and it happened to be our daughter's first birthday, and we were such a clustered up mess we didn't remember really.
I mean,
and one of the people
understandable.
One of the people even baked her a cake and brought it over to us.
Oh,
so we did it all.
Even better.
Yeah, so that's just as an example of just an incredibly powerful community endeavor,
right?
That we benefited from. So yeah, and then so that's the main way we trade labor now, but also we'll go help each other do, if there's something weird comes up, we go help on another farm, or once in a while we've even done trades where we'll trade some friends of ours are about an hour away, and it's just a little bit too far to be convenient to pop in and out. So we'll arrange these work trades where Rebecca will come down here and I'll go up there, but it's really just a play date. So Eric and I can go play, and Rebecca and Stacy can play.
Sure. Hey, there's value in that too.
Some work happens.
Talk about work happens at least.
That's right.
You hinted at a budding commune. I want to hear it.
Well, we got a friend out here who is ostensibly trying to start a commune, and he was trying to recruit some of the people that are active members in our commune. Anyway, there's just been a lot of jokes. They said, well, no, because we're already kind of in this commune thing. So it's
just talking about life on Red Door Family Farm.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not a commune. Everybody has their own autonomy, and they come and go as they please and whatever. It's really just staff housing arrangement. But we get together for meals, and we share a septic tank, so that brings us close.
Yeah, that would definitely bring it close.
And no, I don't know. It's great, actually. We even are talking about building another one, so we'll see. We got a family friend who's from Mexico, actually, and is graduating with a degree in horticulture. Got in then the final part of his university degree is that he needs to go work on a farm, like an orchard or a vegetable farm or whatever. And his degree is in vegetable production, and so he checked and ran it through the school, and they okayed him to come up here. So we're hoping. I just talked to him actually right before this.
Nice.
We were sending some emails back and forth. So the plan is he's going to come up and work here next year, which would be a lot of fun. I think my Spanish is pretty good. I used to work in Costa Rica and Mexico, but I don't know. There's going to be a lot of learning happening.
Yeah,
on both ends of this arrangement.
first month will be rough.
Yeah.
But does he speak any English?
I don't know, to be honest. I
Did
know
you just
his
talk to him
mom.
through email?
Yeah, I know his mom and dad mostly. And
Okay.
I have met him, but he's been away at college the whole time. Basically, I've known his parents, and we go down there for vacation, and she's my parents' Spanish teacher. Actually, that's how we know her.
Oh.
And just a wonderful family, and they live up in the hills, and they basically farm by hand. I don't know, 5 hectares or something, so about 10 acres or better. And it's really cool what they're doing. Corn and squash
cool.
and beans and pasture.
Shoot, I forgot my question. I had something else to follow up with. Aren't you like, you said you were like making your own compost, like real heavy this year, weren't you? Like,
oh yeah,
is it?
Yeah.
So what I've heard people do is like they have like these worm bins essentially, and let like the worm juice, like the compost tea, like be at the bottom. And is there like some like little vortex machine or something like that? I don't remember all the
Yeah,
details.
you can do that. I haven't. I've just started playing with some, brewed teas.
What does that mean? What is brewed tea?
Well, you're essentially somebody probably could answer this better and is going to be whatever. But when it's brewed, you're taking some microbial inoculum, whether it's compost or vermicompost or actual just ordering lactic acid bacteria culture or whatever the thing is that you're trying to brew up, and then you're putting it in a tank and adding some sort of food to create conditions for that microbial population to just explode.
Okay.
So that's what I mean when I say a brewed tea versus an extract, which is you're essentially just like pressure, making coffee, but not hot. So you're just pushing the water through the medium, whether it's compost or vermicast, or just mixing the inoculum. Even if you're buying a purchased powdered inoculum and mixing it into water just as a way to spread that out. And the big difference is with the brewed tea, you get a much higher microbial population. But if you're making that out of something like compost, you're not getting the full resolution of the biology that's in the compost. Some things are not going to take to the brewing process, other things are. So you're sort of selecting for the environment that's in your brew tank. Now, the hardiest things are going to be able to thrive in the brew tank and get sprayed out on the field and thrive there too. But for us, an outdoor compost pile, and they're mostly static piles. I do some active turning early on in the process, but then it sits in a relatively static windrow. So that is a much more similar environment to the field that they're going out in. So really what I'm doing is I'm just mixing them in water as a way to cover more ground faster.
Do you think you'd ever scale it up so you could be like, that would be an output of the farm? So like you could sell it to other farms?
Yeah, that's my retirement plan.
Honestly though, what's your timeline on something like that?
It's just a joke now.
Oh,
I'm too,
womp womp.
I'm too, too. I have too much work to do to start planning my retirement. But I don't know. In all seriousness, um, it could be my goal for this year is to get a system that is produces a reliable product that I can effectively use and implement and just have that system working at a farm scale. Um, and I think I've got that pretty well ironed out. I've got enough raw material that I can start spreading the compost the ways that I want to. And I've got enough going on that I'll be rolling into next year with even more of that. So I should be able to put uh, more out at better times. And I've got a design in mind. I'm kind of moving the composting system because of this greenhouse we're putting up. So I've got a design in mind for that. But if it works as well as I hope it will, um, and I would be able to scale up to a size of being able to supply, I'm just going to pick a number, but like up to 10 or 12 more farms
That's
of
pretty
our
sweet.
size without any major infrastructure investment, you know. Um, and I don't know if that happens over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, and I feel like I have a product that I really believe in and people want, then I might scale that up. But right now, it's just Hans and I planning our early retirement. Neighboring farm who has dairy cows, and so he's got sawdust and cow manure and wheel loaders and all those sorts of things.
Those are all good things to
Yeah,
include.
yeah, I would.
So I'll look for Red Door Family Farm Tenzin's special sauce or something like that on the
Right.
shelves near me.
Yep.
We'll have to.
Yeah, there could be something like that in the future. I don't know. We'll
That'd be
see.
kind of cool. Because right now I've got some plant starts growing under my stairs, and then also I got a seed cabinet right next to me here. That I use Garrett juice. Yeah, that's what it's called, Garrett juice. It's basically just
Hmm.
like compost tea, and then
Hmm.
you have to dilute it. It's like an ounce or two per gallon um, to just bring life to store bought
Right.
potting soil, I guess, essentially. Because um, I've got like the compost that I'm making currently. It needs another month under the tarps. I 2 months ago I shoveled out all the like wood chips and stuff out of the chicken coop, and then I soaked it real heavy, and then threw a tarp over it.
Hmm.
And I actually did a video a week later because I'm like, all right, I got to check the temperature and see if like it's hot. And so I actually borrowed a thermal imaging gun from work. And so like I pulled back the top layer, and it was like bright, like yellow, like it was visibly hotter in there, and like you could see steam coming off of it and everything. It was pretty cool, but it won't be ready for another month. That's why I'm stuck buying junk from the store and have to
Yeah.
use amendments to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just to kind of come back around to pricing and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we sort of started. We would just buy a truck full of composted pelletized poultry manure, um, and that works well and is quite affordable. But it's a real pain in the butt because it's a big schmeary mess unless you just take it off of the truck and get it onto the field. So one day in May, whenever they kind of decided to show up, we would scramble around and we would drive all over the farm and we'd throw chicken poop on everything. And it was composted already, and so there wasn't,
Right.
we didn't have to deal with 90 days or anything, but it's still, it's chicken barn, whatever. It's not, you wouldn't want it on your salad. Um, so we would have whole areas of the farm that are planted that we didn't want to throw it on top of. And then we would have, and it was invariably too wet to be driving that much weight around the fields. And so we'd make compaction and mud stuff up. And it was just kind of a mess. And then we started getting a little bit more serious and working with an agronomist and coming up with sort of a base recipe that was, still based on CPM, composted poultry manure, but also sort of targeted more specifically for our crops and our soil mostly. So we were essentially working at remineralizing the soil incrementally as we were feeding each year's crop.
Okay.
And that seemed to work significantly better. And so then we kind of got more into that. And then in the last year or two, I've really done a deep dive because we're spending, I don't know, $800 a ton or something for this stuff. And if I was putting out as much as I wanted, it would be a ton per acre, which isn't crazy really in the world of organic amendments. They're just they're lower octane than anhydrous ammonia or something like that.
Right.
So, but even so, that's a lot of money to be putting out there.
Right.
And so while I'm dedicated to doing that here for a while, and we purchased compost the last couple of years too, and almost at the same amount we're spending on fertilizer, it's a lot of money. It all adds up, and I do think that it will pay out dividends into the future. So while it's justifiable, it's I feel like we're never going to get very far ahead doing that. So this was really just an effort to focus on getting the missing elements and minerals in a more targeted way, and then bringing the biology back and just really focusing on fostering that biological component to make good use of what is there, and also to keep the ground a little bit more stress tolerant as far as weather extremes, which seem like the only weather we get.
That's true. Can you see this comment that I posted at the bottom of the screen here?
Does the compost have a strong smell to it? No. When it's done, it does not. So the fertilizer that we buy does have a strong smell to it. But the compost that we are producing does not have a strong smell to it. The part that smells when it does is the pile of whatever happens to be on hand that's waiting to go into the composting process. So, what most people would probably just call that a compost pile, but I sort of call it a pre pile for the compost.
Pre-pile.
And so if we end up with a situation where a fox gets into the hen house or something, and you got a few chickens, and I am not picky about what goes in the compost pile. Some people may disagree with that strategy, but
unless it's anything to do with mink, then you do.
Yes. Right. No, well, we had a lot of chickens in the compost pile one year as a result of a mink.
I was thinking like the mink scraps road.
Yeah. No, that's a real thing up here. We got a lot of mink farms.
Go ahead.
So at any rate, once the process actually gets started, it has not unpleasant but strong smell for the first probably 3 to 5 days when we're really heating it up and turning it basically daily. And then after that, it gets laid out into a windrow, and it really mellows out fast, cools off, and becomes mesophilic, or just sort of warm. instead of hot, and then we put the worms in there, and then it sits there that whole time. I kind of put a bed of wood chips down, and then I put the finished, barely finished compost. So it's heated up for the number of days that it needs, and it's stayed above 130 degrees for 5 days, or I can't remember exactly what the rule is. I do way well more than that before it's a week to 9 days before I put it out, and then it sits and finishes composting for a whole year essentially.
Okay.
And the point of that, and the point of the wood chip inoculum, is to try to boost the fungal population, because we do cultivate and till and things that are harder on the fungal population than on the bacterial population. So I'm trying to create a compost that when it goes out is saying sorry to the right things.
Right. When I make compost, like, it smells, I mean, it's a bunch of chicken poop and wood chips pretty much, and it doesn't really have that much of a smell. Like, as soon as you get it wet, like, it smells earthy. And then I mean, even given it like that week when I checked up on it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna smell so good, this is gonna be great. But as far as using like that Garrett juice plus is like that worm castings, compost teas, whatever, like it does have a weird smell to it. I don't even know how to describe it. It smells weird. It's strong, which is why you gotta dilute it.
Yeah, and that's a brewed up. It's got to be anaerobic. If it's, well, I guess it doesn't have to be. There's some way to kind of put those aerobic ones dormant. I don't know all that much about it, to be honest, but yeah, I made one batch of brewed up tea, and it stunk and it was a big sticky mess, and I just
thanks for the comment, Artifact. We got one more comment here, and then to probably wrap up. Flying Monkey on YouTube. How big are both y'all's farms? I have 2-acre homestead that I have just like a little bit of vegetables and 17 laying hens. Not going to do any meat birds this year. But Tenzin, why don't you tell them how big your farm is?
The farm itself is 36 acres, and we've got about 15 under cultivation, and about 10 to 12 of that is in vegetables. And then one of our employees runs a laying hen operation. She's got a 200 or 250 chickens out there, and then does some broiler birds as well. And we've raised pigs in the past. I plan to bring them back in, but I've kind of swapped pigs out for worms here the last year or two.
You can just start eating worms.
The pigs are more delicious, but the worms
true.
are easy. The worms are easier to manage.
That is true. They won't try to test electric fence.
Yep, and if they do, they don't wreck anything.
Still there?
I am. Yeah. Are you?
I might be losing you.
Oh. Well, I remembered to plug the phone in this time, so it shouldn't be that trick again.
Well, we'll start the process. You can find Farm Hop Life everywhere. I'm trying to be on every social media platform in the world. You can go to farmhoplife.com, email me, matt@farmhoplife.com. And if you think I'm a sexist pig because this is a men's forum and I'm not inviting women here, let me know, because I'm trying to encourage Katie to start a women's forum. So all the women that have been on the show, they're welcome to have their own thing. I'd encourage that. So, Tenzin, would you like to let people know where they can find you and what you're doing?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. We also have a website, reddoorfamilyfarm.com. And I don't know. That's sort of the easiest place to see what we're up to. Or if you're up this way, pop on in.
All right. I'll have links for your stuff in the show notes. So just
Great.
hold on one second and we'll chat just for just a few minutes. I appreciate everybody stopping by to come to the first men's forum, Monday night men's forum. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night.